Hello, church family. It's Ray. I hope your week is going as well as mine is. After an overwhelmingly positive response from the announcement video last week, it looks like these will continue to come out weekly for the foreseeable future. The goal will be to keep them between 10 and 15 minutes, depending on how much is going on during that week. I am also going to highlight a few other things that we would like you to be thinking or praying about with us. Once we get the legal side of everything taken care of, we also hope to share prayer requests and updates about members who give us the okay to do so. Knowing what we can and cannot share about the health situations of our members is sometimes a fine line to walk. Yes, as a staff, we are required by HIPAA to get approval for sharing members' health information publicly. We also have to pay for the rights to sing and play any music that is not in the public domain at a gathering, and be careful that our wireless microphones do not use banned or state or federally owned frequencies, all of which come with hefty fines, some as high as $10,000 per offense. I say all of that just so you know that things have changed in the church world and there is so much more to keep up with on the legal side of things, and we thank you for your patience while we work things out. But we do hope to have prayer requests and health information for people, updates about how they're doing as a part of this very soon. Okay, before we get to the announcements, I want to read a part of our scripture for you this week. It is from Psalm chapter 16. Verses 5 through 9 say, "Lord, you are my portion and my cup of blessing. You hold my future. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance. I will bless the Lord who counsels me, even at night when my thoughts trouble me. I always let the Lord guide me. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my whole being rejoices. My body also rests securely." Now there are a couple things I want to break down for you about this beautiful psalm. When David writes, "I always let the Lord guide me," that phrase literally translated from the Hebrew means I place the Lord in front of me always. This brings a different significance to what David is saying. He doesn't just let God guide his path, he places the Lord in front of him always. In place of his ambition, his wants, and even his fear, he makes the intentional act of putting the Lord in front of what he wants. My son Alex used to say that the opposite of an accident is an on purpose. David isn't allowing accidents here. Ahead of everything else, he is placing the Lord ahead of him on purpose, and because he has learned to do that, he says that his heart is glad, his whole being rejoices, and his body rests securely. And that sounds pretty good to me. Our first announcement this week is the Harvest Festival and Trunk or Treat this Saturday. As of a few minutes ago, there have been 389 people respond on Facebook alone that they are either planning to come or are interested in coming. This is a huge response from the community. Please be in prayer with us for gospel conversations to happen. That is why we are having this event and others like it. One of the most difficult things for a church to do is get people on their parking lot, and this kind of event does that in spades and allows us to have open conversations with people about the hope we have in Jesus. If you are volunteering to help with this event, please arrive no later than 10 a.m. for a team meeting and then to get everything set up. We will have coffee and donuts ready to give you a burst of energy. If you haven't signed up to be a volunteer yet, but you still want to, join us at 10 a.m. anyway, because we will have plenty for you to do. Trunk or Treat will follow the Harvest Festival from 5 to 8 p.m. It is being hosted at Roger and Carrie's house on the hill, so arrive with your decorated vehicle and treats at their house no later than 4:30 p.m. If you are serving at the Harvest Festival as well, we will let you go early so you can get set up for Trunk or Treat. A few others and I will worry about packing everything up at the church. Next is Operation Christmas Child. The shoeboxes are out front in the foyer, and you are welcome to take as many as you would like to fill on your own. You can also bring items for the church boxes and join us on Sunday, November 14th after the morning gathering to pack the remaining shoeboxes with everything we have collected as a church throughout the year. Or you can even do both. One side note, it has come to our attention that the labels inside the shoeboxes are outdated and may show a recommended monetary donation of $7 to cover shipping costs. Due to the increase in shipping fees, that recommended donation is now $9. However, they also happily accept the boxes without the shipping cost being covered, so do what you need to do. The amount is only a recommendation and not a necessary one. Speaking of Operation Christmas Child, the Shoebox Trivia Night will be held on Saturday, November the 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. The event, weather permitting, will be held outside with fire pits for roasting hot dogs and marshmallows, as well as coffee, hot apple cider, and hot cocoa. Each team that registers in advance will have their own tent with sidewalls to keep the wind at bay. It is going to be a good time raising money to finish off our shoeboxes before we send them off to children around the world. Find out more and register your team of 6 online at www.cedarhillfbc.com/trivia. Lastly, we are raising money and gathering new or gently used winter coats for our community. This need came to our attention during the free market when several parents asked if we had winter coats available because they were concerned about having coats that fit and were warm enough for their children, but some also mentioned for themselves. It started as a small project but is getting more and more attention every week. So this is a huge opportunity for us to put our money where our heart is as a church. If you have a gently used coat that you would donate or money you would like to give, there's a large barrel near the entrance of the church where you can put the coats. Or if you would like to give cash or a check so we can buy a brand new coat in the size a child needs and maybe even the color they prefer, you can drop that gift in the offering in an envelope, label it coats, and we will make sure it goes where it needs to. We have had currently about a dozen registered requests for coats through our website, and we'll let people know during the Harvest Festival and Trunk or Treat where they can register for one as well. This is all of the primary announcements for the week. However, if you missed the business meeting on Sunday, you may want to know about this. Last month, a task force was formed to eliminate $20,000 to $25,000 from the annual budget due to a third consecutive month where expenditures exceeded giving. Nearly 100 hours of work by Shelby Lindsay, Diane Johnson, and myself went into this project. We presented a plan to eliminate $25,386 from the budget to Pastor Roger, who then passed it on to the Finance Committee for approval. This was then explained, presented, and approved by the congregation at the business meeting on 10/24. Meeting this goal required the elimination of two paid positions, the finance secretary position held by Chris Boyer and the worship leader position held by Heather Jones. This was not an easy decision, but most agreed a necessary one. Chris and Heather also agreed that it needed to be done, at least for a time. The duties of the finance secretary are being split up into three parts. One part, primarily tax preparation, will be handled by our current accounting firm for a small fee. Shelby Lindsay, who is the current Finance Committee chairperson, agreed to take on part of the role as a volunteer, and Diane Johnson, our church secretary, will handle another part of the job. We will be eliminating a few of Diane's current job responsibilities to make room for taking on these new tasks. She will not be asked to work any more than she is getting paid for. Heather will continue to serve as a worship leader at full capacity, only as a volunteer instead of as a paid staff member. Please take a moment this Sunday to thank Chris, Heather, Shelby, and Diane for their service and sacrifice for our church family. Now, I mentioned that we may want you to think and pray about things that we are thinking and praying about this week. And this is one of those things, this question: why is gathering as the church important? Remember, the building we gather in is irrelevant. Don't take me wrong, having a building that meets our needs and helps us accomplish our goals is awesome. It truly is, and I am thankful for ours. But as far as our mission is concerned, making disciples, nostalgia and comfort simply do not carry much weight. Our meeting space should be used to achieve our discipleship-making goals, period, stop. I was blessed to be a member of a church that was set on fire. Literal fire. Two thieves broke in to steal the tithes and offering from the safe, but when they found it empty, they set fire to the office out of anger. The rapid response from the local fire department helped us avoid a total loss, but the damage from smoke and flame was extensive. Our pastor gathered a group of us together that Friday afternoon and asked us what we wanted to do about that coming Sunday. Setting practicality aside, we decided to meet as a church. We didn't have a place to gather, instruments, technology, an area designated for children, or even chairs to sit in. But we were determined to gather as a church. That day, we began pulling anything salvageable out of the building that we once called our church home. Musicians went home and started scavenging enough instruments and equipment to make some noise, and the kids' ministry team went to work putting together a plan for the kids without even knowing what kind of space they would have to work with, if any. Within hours, a local business offered us a space. The business operated out of an old Catholic girls' school. In an unrenovated section of the structure was the old theater. It hadn't been used in years. It was dirty, infested with pigeons because of broken windows, had old, uncomfortable wooden theater seats covered in pigeon poo, and no air conditioning for the warm summer Sunday we were expecting. Very long story short, 36 hours after making the decision, and with very little sleep had by any of us, we opened the doors and gathered together that morning. The boxes for the newly installed window-mounted air conditioners piled in a room just out of sight. I say that I was blessed to be a part of that because it proves something I always knew, but had never really seen proven in such a way. We are the church, not the building we gather in. Where we gathered wasn't important to us. It was that we gathered together. That Sunday, the lyrics from Chris Tomlin's song, Our God, rang out with newfound meaning. Into the darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you. And if our God is for us, then who could ever stop us? And if our God is with us, then what could stand against? Now, why am I telling you this story that you clearly didn't ask for? Well, where or when we meet doesn't really matter much, but that we meet means everything. From the narrative in Acts through the epistles of Paul, Peter, James, and John, we see that God's work in the world today is being completed through his church. Not a building, but his people who are the church. In the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 10, verses 23 through 25, says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." We aren't supposed to gather together for entertainment purposes, to pass a plate, or to keep the church as a time capsule for nostalgic strolls down memory lane, but to encourage one another to pursue love and to do good deeds. We are to gather and encourage each other, bearing each other's burdens. When we gather, we are supposed to be equipped with the word to grow and become spiritually mature so that we can disciple others. We are to become disciples and then make disciples. The building where we gather and the rooms therein are a tool to accomplish kingdom purposes alone. It isn't a storage facility. It isn't a museum. It isn't an entertainment venue. It is a place where people gather and discipleship happens. Not long ago, my youngest son was complaining that his tablet kept dying. I asked him if it was getting charged. He answered yes, but when I looked closer, I realized that while one end of the cable was indeed attached to his device, it wasn't plugged into the wall. It wasn't connected. Look, if you are feeling disconnected from our church, I would ask you to answer two questions. Am I gathering with my church family often enough? And when I do gather with them, am I one of the last ones in and one of the first ones out when the music stops? Maybe you are partially plugged in but not connected. Here's my challenge to you this week. Get connected. Come early. Stay late. Join a small group. Start serving somewhere with others. Ask fellow believers out to dinner or have them over for supper. Ask each other important questions when you're together. What do you think about what the president did or didn't do again this week is an earthly matter and carries very little eternal weight. Ask each other about kingdom matters. Where did you see God show up last week? Where do you need him to show up this week? How can I be his hands and feet in your life this week? What can I be praying with you about? And then I want you to do something that I know is going to sound absolutely crazy. Stop and pray with them right there and ask God to come into that need in that moment. As a leader in the church, I don't want people leaving and saying, "Man, I felt like I went to church today." I grew up where that was the goal. We wanted people to feel like they had been to church. I don't want that. I want them leaving and saying, "Man, I was a part of the church today." That is my prayer this week, that we show up for one another and for the community we serve and truly be more than a building, more than a name, more than a place we show up to once in a while, and be Christ's hands and feet, an active, aggressive, affirming church. Well, that's more than enough for me this week. I hope to see you this weekend. Be blessed.